Hello, this is meteorologist Brad Werner for Region Weather Live, your YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota. And hey guys, it's been a while. Good to see everybody. Thanks for checking in here. And that's what I'm doing. We haven't spoken for quite a while. Been mostly just rain events across the area. A little bit of severe weather, maybe down across southern parts of Minnesota, southeast, South Dakota, but nothing too much. But we do have something that we got to pay attention to a little bit for Monday afternoon going into Monday evening, once again for southeast South Dakota, southern Minnesota. So let's go on and take a quick look. We're going to start off by taking a quick look at the mid-levels at the 500 millibar level, or roughly about 18,000 feet in the air. And this is kind of what we look at a lot of times for our steering winds, for our severe weather. And we can see we've got a pretty good jet streak pushing into our area. Some pretty strong winds nosing into our region going into the afternoon on Monday. Now a little bit lower at the 850 millibar level, or around 5,000 feet. We've got still some pretty good strong winds, this time a little more easterly, so kind of south-southeast. Notice at about the 500 millibar level, it was kind of coming up in this type of direction, nosing into southern parts or eastern parts of South Dakota going into Monday afternoon. So we do have a little bit of that backing wind type of activity for Monday afternoon going into Monday evening across eastern parts of South Dakota. Now taking a little different look up at the 500 millibar level, this kind of shows us where some areas of spin are in the atmosphere that creates lift. Notice as we go into the afternoon how that pushes eastward and a little bit northward as well. So we have some decent lift going on across Nebraska and actually even far down into Kansas and into Oklahoma, where we're looking at a moderate risk of severe weather across this region going into the afternoon as well. We got plenty of moisture working its way northward. Look at those dew points. In fact, look at these areas across Oklahoma, 70s all the way up into Kansas, 60s into Nebraska, and just perhaps clipping far southeastern parts of South Dakota. So really unstable down across the south. Now why I mentioned the south for our region is because once those storms really get going, that's ultimately going to sap a lot of that energy away from us. Even though we've got some decently strong winds, some pretty strong winds nosing into our region, we still have plenty of instability, a whole lot of lift going on further to the south. And that's ultimately going to rob a good part of our energy away from us. So while these guys are going to be dealing with straight line winds, large hail, multiple tornadoes are possible down there, that's going to help limit our area for the potential for some severe weather. So we take a little closer look as we start the afternoon on Monday, and we're just going to be looking at scattered showers and some rain across eastern parts of Montana. In fact, if this area does kind of curly Q its way back around, western parts of the Dakotas, northwest South Dakota could really pick up a fair amount of rain with this system, where we're looking at over 1.5 inches or 2 in some of these areas. Just depends on how exactly this tracks. But what we're mainly talking about, obviously, is going to be the potential for some severe weather. You can see how these storms begin to fire up. This is right around 6 p.m. and some of these storms start to get going across southeastern parts of South Dakota. And notice we get just a little bit of a line that begins to form. We do have some cells that want to at least indicate some rotation. So while most of the energy will be to our south, we do have that possibility, that slight possibility of an isolated tornado or two across the far southeastern parts of South Dakota, maybe even far southwestern parts of Minnesota. But I think ultimately what the main threat's going to be is if this area does kind of line up and begins to push eastward, our main threat for our region going into the overnight hours. Now this is around 9 p.m., 10, 11, and midnight. Up until that point, the main threat, I think, is really going to be the stronger winds, where we're going to be looking at 60, 70, 75 mile per hour winds associated with some of these storms. We're going to take one other look at a different model here. This is 5 p.m., 6 p.m., and 7 p.m. Again, you could see some of those storms beginning to line up, some stronger ones still across southeastern parts of South Dakota. And not only are we going to be talking about the wind, but I should mention we're going to have the potential for some hail along with that. Ultimately, from a damage standpoint, I mean, we should be focused a little more on the wind potential as the potential as this area kind of lines up and pushes eastward through the overnight hours. This is 9, 10, and 11 p.m. And I think by this point, and for sure by midnight, we may still have some stronger storms, maybe some gusty winds out of this. But ultimately, I think by the time we get to 11 p.m. and midnight, most of those storms should be below severe levels. Now, for the remainder of the forecast, we're looking at those showers and storms basically siding east through the overnight hours, Monday night going into Tuesday morning. We've got that rain wrapping back around and again across western parts of the Dakotas, particularly western North Dakota, northwestern parts of South Dakota. And then as we get in through the day on Tuesday, again, that low pressure just continues to spin around here. Some of that rain continues to move to the northeast, continue to have some showers across the west. And then ultimately, as we get into Tuesday night and on into Wednesday, most of this stuff really begins to dissipate. Now, Wednesday, we could still have a few scattered showers across the region, perhaps even a few thunderstorms across southern parts of Minnesota, but nothing too widespread. And as we go through the week, we've got this large high pressure system that begins to nose its way in. This is Friday, perhaps a little shower activity across Minnesota, particularly northern Minnesota, going on Friday. And then as we get into Saturday and Sunday, most of the weekend as of right now looks to be pretty decent. So there you go, a quick little forecast for you as we're mainly focused on, again, kind of southeast South Dakota, perhaps southwestern parts of Minnesota. I think, like I said, the main threat really is going to be the wind. There will be some hail. We cannot rule out an isolated tornado, maybe two, but really we're going to be watching the wind as we get late into the afternoon, mainly through the evening and the early nighttime hours. All right, everybody, that's really all I've got for you. Other than that, it looks kind of quiet beyond Monday. And so you probably won't see me for quite a while. So if the severe weather does look to be threatening for our region, I'll make sure to pop back on. But if you don't see me for a while, that means nothing big is on the horizon. And that probably wouldn't be so bad. I guess I would put up with that because I really need to get through my daughter's graduation before anything really goes nuts. So hopefully the weather can hold off for that at least. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Werner. Everybody have a good day.